Welcome to the Refine Workshop. Happy New Year to all of you that are joining us live. Thank you so much for being here today. We're going to tighten up the focus here in a little bit here. Just going to move myself a little bit more forward to get things going. Welcome to everybody here watching live on YouTube, watching live on Twitch, watching live on LinkedIn. Thanks so much for being here. I hope you had a great start to the year. I've got everything set up as you can see here. We're going to jump over to right here. There's the Refine Workshop, of course. And of course, just like last time, I've got my nice little workshop area set up. I've actually added a few more things to my, to my setup in terms of getting my year ready with this traveler's notebook. So I'm really excited to bring this workshop to you here today. Thanks so much for being here. Let me know where you're coming from as we get started here today. We're going to be probably here upwards of 90 minutes on the live stream today. Really, again, excited to kind of kick off 2024. For those of you that start your year in January, I personally start mine in September to kind of mirror the school year, but January just offers a fresh start, a clean slate of both time and space that I think we can all benefit from. One of my biggest things for you today as you are joining us, and by the way, hi Sue, hi to Zoe. I know Zoe's here as well. Anyone else who's here live, I'd love to hear from you, both in the Twitch stream as well as in the YouTube live. And if you're not here live and watching the recording, that's totally fine too. This is going to be up for the foreseeable future. Ellie, good to see you again. You're at both workshops, so it's good to see you here for the Resolve and the Refine workshop. If you missed the Resolve workshop, it is here on my YouTube channel. It should be saved in the Twitch live stream as well as in LinkedIn, so you should be able to find them on any of the channels that you're using. Biggest thing I want to share with you, Timothy, good to see you as well. Biggest thing I want to share with you, and by the way, I'm chatting mostly with YouTube viewers, so if you're on Twitch and you're not saying hi, that's part of it. Dan, good to see you. Biggest thing that I think we all tend to do when the year kicks back in, especially because, you know, it's Tuesday already for most of us as we're kind of diving into this, is we want to get back into things right away with, you know, kind of a rejuvenated spirit, full steam ahead, full speed ahead. And the biggest problem with this is that we run the risk of burning out really early on, okay? I know there's a lot of excitement, a lot of promise, potential in the next 12 months. However, we have to kind of be patient and trust the process of the year. I just posted on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it not too long ago, the idea that, look, if you were to spend 15 minutes a day on the treadmill, 5 days a week, which I intend on doing this year, you would end up with 65 hours of treadmill time over the course of a 52-week period. That's a lot of time on a treadmill for just 15 minutes a day. If you were to write 500 words a day for your book, 5 days a week, you would end up with 130,000 words if you wrote 5 days a week for the full 52 weeks of the calendar year. So it's those little steps, those refinements that really can help us move our year forward and live a year filled with productiveness and improve our relationship with time overall. Because when we try to cram too many things in the time and space we've been given, it actually hurts our relationship with time and our ability to manage our relationship with time more than it does not. So one of the things I want to share with you today in this workshop is this idea of refinement. Refining what you've resolved to do in the months ahead, refining kind of your plans, your strategies, even a reframing or a rethinking as well. Good to see you, Scott, Gloria, Jean. Good to see you, Mike, as well. Good to see you, Ed, as well. John, also in the chat here on YouTube. So the first thing that we're going to get into today is, again, kind of spending some time thinking about what we resolved to do. Now, if you were in the Resolve workshop, you already kind of came up with a plan. You strategized, you started to launch, you did some validation exercises. Hopefully you took some of that stuff away. I know John did. John, thank you for the email, by the way. Very, very kind email. Thanks for sharing that with me. this workshop is about refining that stuff. So if you did not spend any time in the resolve workshop, that's okay. You've probably put together your own form of things you want to be resolute about in the months ahead. This workshop is an opportunity for you to refine that. Refine your plans, your goals, your intentions. Refine your attention around them as well. And so we're going to spend some time going through that today. And the first thing we're going to do is, of course, sit back and review. Now, each of these periods of time that we're going to take today is about 10 minutes of time. Now, you can take as long as you feel you need to if you're watching the recording of this, or if you decide that you want to do this after the fact. Again, this video will be up, so you'll be able to do it at your leisure later on down the line. I just really want you to spend some time doing some form of review. Now, review and reflection kind of go hand in hand. Review sounds maybe a bit more technical, a bit more clinical as opposed to reflection. But I believe, especially if you're in the resolve workshop, you know that reflection comes before and after every action. Okay? Good to see you, Diana, here in the live as well. So what I want you to do, if you haven't already done so, and even if you have, it's taking a step back for 10 minutes and just doing some form of review and reflection can be really helpful in this stage of refinement. I will tell you, every year I read my journal from the previous year on January 1st. It's the only real tradition I have on January 1st. And yesterday I read my entire journal from beginning to end. Okay? It's basically a book, a 365-page book every single year. Now, what's interesting is it wasn't a full 365 pages this year. In fact, in the month of October, I only journaled 9 times. So I was able to see some patterns between September and November, and even the ones that the entries in October gave me a sense of what might have been going on in my life in October, right? So this period of reflection, to take stock as to what the last 12 months or whatever period of time you're reflecting on or reviewing has given you and put you where you're at now, it's important to do that before we refine. You can't really move forward unless you take a look at some of the things that brought you to where you're at. Not only because you get to recognize patterns, but you also can course correct in case you're going in the wrong direction. Good to see you, Rani, as well. So the first thing that I want you to do is reflect on the past year's experiences. So if you have a journal, take the next 10 minutes as we go through this workshop to go through those journal entries. Maybe your journal entries are as simple as going through your Facebook feed and looking at memories. And luckily, social media does allow for this in a lot of ways. In fact, a friend of mine yesterday said that's really why they post to Facebook at this point, just to see the memories. I personally like the journal because the journal I can be a bit more frank, more honest, more vulnerable, and there's less judgment going on there, at least from anybody else. I can tell you, when you write your own journal, sometimes there is some judgment that you offer. So we're going to take the next 10 minutes to, again, reflect on the past year. Now that the year is in the rear view mirror, let's take a look and review it and then see any insights that we gained. And then what I want you to do is, once we're done that, even you could do this in the chat if you're here live while we're talking about it, share what you've learned. Share how it can influence your future plans, the plans we are going to refine today. So we're going to take 10 minutes to do this now. I'll start a timer. I'll step away. We'll put some music on, and I'll give you 10 minutes to just spend some time doing some review. Let's get started. right, you've got one more minute to complete this exercise. Okay. So how did we do? I noticed that quite a few people in the YouTube live stream had already done this, which is great. Zoe has done it as well. Ellie, there's quite a few people that have done it. Alicia did a great thing where they basically decided to change to journaling from the end to the beginning of the day, which is, again, there's no wrong time. Whatever you can make work for you. I know a lot of people in the morning do morning pages. So it's excellent to see how the changes in September helped you out. Gloria Jean's review said that it showed that she was getting hold of her time, better email practices, converting from Evernote to Apple Notes, which I think a lot of people either converted from Evernote to Apple Notes or something else, as well as increasing creative time and unsubscribing more, so removing things. And again, Celtic Peasant Zoe, I hope you don't mind me sharing that your name, but I just know that's who you are. Is that you know, being more kind to yourself. Time crafting's taught you that in terms of grace and such, and it is beneficial to have that in mind as we make our way forward. You know, and time crafting does help us with this because let's face it, you know, we will not be done crafting our time until we have none of it left. And this year there were some interesting things that happened to me. I again, because I read my journal yesterday, I have a sense of what the year was like. So in the app Reflection, and I have a video that I've done on the journaling app I use called Reflection, really it got summed up in 2 words, which was gaining perspective. And really these 6 kind of takeaways, and some were like the gray I used for things that maybe were not pleasant, and then green were the things that were like elements of growth, although I think all of these can lead to growth. So I lost not just one friend, but a couple of friends in 2023, and that made me think about my mortality more. I didn't write as much as I'd hoped. Yes, I did do some writing, but not nearly as much as I wanted to, and I took on too much. So I tried to do too much in the time that was there. Sometimes what I'll do is, and I think we're all prone to this, is if we have a framework, we try to see how far we can bend it before it breaks. And I've done that a couple of years, and this past year was an example of that. I spent more time doing cool stuff with my son. As I went through my journal, I found that my son and I went to Seattle together for a wrestling event. We went and spent 2 weeks in the East Coast, visiting and doing something he really wanted to do. We did a lot of fun stuff together. Went to Vancouver for a trip. So this is a year where we did a lot of stuff that we both enjoyed. I ate better as the year progressed. You know, I started getting more consistent with my meal times. I was eating more oatmeal in the mornings with flax and almond butter, which has been helpful. And then I refined my pursuits better as 2023 progressed, as it moved on. So what I mean by that is I took some of the things I really wanted to do and just refined them, eliminated some that didn't, and took time to really push myself forward with the ones that I really wanted to. Randy, of course, spent lots of study in Obsidian with my friend Mike Schmitz, who does a fantastic program called Obsidian University. He's helping people with their personal knowledge management. I think it's absolutely fantastic that you did that. And then some things that I just wrote down randomly, and I do this sometimes. This is in my journal. I wrote down, I don't mind what happens, which is a quote my friend Ernie shared with me, which is an answer that if I could look at my phone right now, I could tell you who the quote's from. But I do like this idea. And I remember getting on a plane heading back from a retreat in April, and I think the plane was delayed, and I just kept that in mind. I don't mind what happens. I don't mind what happens. And it's not just I don't mind as in it doesn't bother me, but I have no control over what happens outside of what I can control. So therefore I don't give it any power. I don't give it the attention. So there's something like that I enjoyed. And then one other thing that's here, and this is again, we'll move on to the next one in a second. The relationship that Mike Schmitz and I have, he introduced me to the cortado, which I'd never really heard of before. And now that's my go-to coffee drink when I go to a coffee bar. So again, like this is all related to friends and stuff. So, I mean, as much as I lost a couple of friends in the year, and there's some, but I tried to take some positives out of it. And then this refined my pursuits better led me to my annual axiom, which may be what you decide to build today, or at least remnants of it, is reason my path. So make sure that my path is sound and reasoned. Refine my pursuits, which I started to do. And you can see, like, I start my year in September, so this was already underway, as evidenced by this. And then respond with purpose. I don't want to react. I want to respond. I want to be more responsive. And that essentially cultivates this concept of productiveness. Timothy says time crafting is helping me learn to focus on just 3 goals. Yeah, see, and that's the thing, is the idea is time crafting should give you some it should filter your focus. And as somebody who created the framework, like I said, I've tried to push it to the breaking point. And the thing is like any framework, you know, the user can be the one that causes the problems with it. So again, you may not want a theme every single day. You may not want a horizontal theme every hour of the day. In fact, you shouldn't. You don't necessarily need a theme every month either. If you are members of Time Crafting Trust as premium members, you know that I have lots of courses and programs in there that teach that. So, and I did a video not too long ago about the brands of time, and I'm going to be expanding more on that in 2024 as well. That's speaking of refining my pursuits. I have a really solid vision of what I want to do in the next 24 months, and that leads us to the next element that we want to discuss. Envision. So now that you've reflected and reviewed, and some of you've already done this, I want you to imagine the possibilities for the next 12 months, or the frame of time that you're in, space that you're kind of looking to refine at this point. But for the purposes of this workshop, let's say for 2024. So what are your aspirations? What would success look like to you? I can tell you that by just looking at this reflection point, this kind of stuff, especially this, spending time with my son doing cool stuff, that would be a version of success for me, right? I think again, I mentioned earlier, exercising, like getting on that treadmill 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, that would be success to me. Writing 500 words a day would be success to me. Writing more would be actually a success to me, to be honest. 500 is small. 500 words for a book, or getting the productivity diet like out and having a successful launch would look like success to me. So that's what I want you to do now. Take the next 10 minutes. And what we're going to do is, again, you're going to envision. So think of this maybe not as a vision board, and maybe your annual, if you have an annual axiom or words for the year or a theme for the year. I know Mike Schmitz talks about life theme, and maybe that's what you apply as well if you've taken his cohort there. Let's take the next 10 minutes and just envision what success would look like for you in 2024. We'll get started with that. We'll take 10 minutes. We'll do that now. 1 minute left. 1 minute left to work on this. Thank you, Tim. I thought we had sound there. All right, so let's come back. I got so carried away. All right, so how do we do? I get so carried away with sharing my my aspirations, my successes for the year, that so apologies for that. All right, so how did that go? Let me know what you came up with in terms of your aspirations or successes. You should have some sound now at this point. I'm looking at it and I'm seeing some sound pop up. So let me know if you hear sounds. Still no sound. Huh. That is very strange. Do you have sound coming out now? There we go. I'm looking at the chat. There should be some sound. All right, there we go. There's a little bit of delay in the live stream versus here. So there we go. All right, sound is working. Yeah, that was just me. I forgot to unmute myself on my Rodecaster. So, okay, great. Making progress. Fantastic. I'm going to share with you something that I think will work out well for you in terms of, I know Alicia's saying like finishing things and getting, so we're going to get to the formulation stage here in a minute, but I'm going to show you what I wrote down to kind of give you a sense. So number one, the productivity diet, as I had said just to myself a few minutes ago, I really want that to go exceedingly well. I didn't give myself a measurable goal by saying 10,000 copies or anything like that. I just know that this has been a long time coming. I want it to go well. I have a collaborative project that I'm working on with someone that I've been very, it's been not as high on my list, unfortunately, and that's on me. I want to, again, this is about refining my pursuits, right? So taking on too much, I've decided this is something I really want to make happen. So that is a success story for me that I'm looking at. Writing a whole lot more and regularly. So this is where, like, how am I going to do that? We'll get to that in the next phase. All right. Building a better or sustained YouTube presence. I'm doing that right now by doing this live workshop. If the fact that I'm also on Twitch and on LinkedIn, doing regular YouTube videos. I've never done that in any of the years I've been on YouTube. I want to publish at least one video per week. My goal success would be one. I'd like to hit 2. So we'll see how this goes. All right. Going deep into the night owl stuff. I'm spending more time studying night owls. I've got some work on that I really want to see. And so when I say going deep, I'm being particularly vague, specifically for the nature of this workshop, but I know what I'm specifically looking at. And again, getting the formulation phase, I'll dive into this a bit more. These are all professional, right? And again, leading 4 strong cohorts, whether it's the Maximize Your Minutes cohort or the professional night owl as well. All right. And thanks for checking on LinkedIn to make sure that the sound is coming through. I knew it was a hardware thing here for me. All right. So here, I couched my response a little by saying exercising no less than 3 times per week. I really want to be on the treadmill 5 times a week. I think that 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and then doing some other form of exercise will help keep me in good shape and help improve, my shape, so to speak, but also keep me healthy, which is a form of self-care that I really want to promote in the months ahead. Also, the other thing that I'm looking at doing is having more fun with family. I started that by doing cool stuff with my son. So what more fun could be: travel, experiences, things like that. Be financially in a fine place. These are areas that, we've been working on for years. I really want to take it to the next level. Get outside more in the dry months. Living here in the Pacific Northwest, it can be very, shall we say, wet from, November until May. So from May until October, I want to get outside a lot more. I have a desk that I usually bring outside. That will go back outside once the rain is essentially, eased up, that sort of thing. Also, journaling daily. This is something I can do. It's not hard to do. It takes less than 5 minutes. And then I had less and /0, and I crossed out less. I want to buy 0 stuff this year. I have a lot of stuff. I have a ton of books behind me right there. I have stuff. I don't need any more stuff. So I'm making a concerted effort to buy 0 stuff in 2024. That really started close to the holidays when I just saw that when someone asked what I wanted for a gift, I really had nothing I wanted because I had bought everything I wanted. And I'm like, well, that's not necessarily the way I want to present myself going forward either. So I have a wish list and I'll have that there, but I'm not going to buy any stuff in 2024. That's my goal. That's what success looks like. So Gloria Jean, Envisioning, continued free time weekends, rotation of paying clients, increased creative time, continued quarterly family time. So we have what success looks like. And now we're going to move on to the next phase, which is all about formulating a plan, breaking down these goals, these aspirations into smaller, manageable tasks with as timelines as clear as you can. Gloria Jean's already started that. She's mentioned that in what she was talking about. Obviously, Randy's celebrating your 50th wedding anniversary. There's clearly a timeline around that. If you journal, you probably will have noticed that, especially if you do what I do, which is go back and read your journal from the year previous, time just flies by in a flash. I didn't realize that it was only in January of last year that my son and I went down to Seattle to watch the AEW wrestling event. We went to the Funko Pop place. Actually, there's the Funko Pop with one of these Funko Pops back here I actually got while I was in Everett, Washington. That's something we did together. We each did our own custom ones. It's really weird because it felt like it was just yesterday that I did it, but also so long ago, right? And so when you journal, you get that perspective of, wow, this is actually closer than I thought it was or further away than I thought it was. So when you're thinking about things like anniversaries, when you're thinking about things like getting your taxes in order for April, it's January. You could start now, right? Again, it's that idea of doing small bit by bit increments, especially starting today when everyone's like going full blast. Just do the slow burn, right? So when you formulate a plan, you could, and you'll be able to see this when I break mine down. What are some of the things I can do very easily? That's what I want you to do. You don't have to do it for all the things right now. You're only going to get 10 minutes to do it. Okay. You're only going to get 10 minutes to do it. So, and by the way, I see Diana saying being an night owl and early bird has its downsides. That's true, but I also think fighting your body clock does. So, Diana, I highly encourage you to follow some of my emails and stuff if you're not already on my email list, because there's going to be a lot more stuff that's going to help out night owls like you and like me, especially around the stigma of being night owls. And that's actually one of the cohorts I teach as well, called the professional night owl, how a night owl can thrive in a world built for early birds. So let's not fall prey. I know this is a bit of a soapbox there, to the whole let's get up early in the morning and that's the only time we can be productive. I'm not saying you're saying that, but it is, the world is not only, built for early birds, but there is this preconceived, like if you don't get up early, then you're not going to be productive. That is not at all true. It's just we have to adjust accordingly. So I'm not going to say I'm not going to encourage you to, I don't encourage anybody to become a night owl if they're not already one. But I also want to make sure that you don't kind of short circuit when you hit your productive stride, because that can happen too. So now what I want you to do is formulate a plan. It could be for one or multiple of these aspirations you set for yourself. Again, you're only going to get 10 minutes to do this. So take some time to maybe get really clear on one of them as opposed to a ton of them, right? Because the more time it's better to get clearer and more detail-oriented about one, and then repeat that process for the other ones, as opposed to trying to do too many of them all at once. So we're going to take 10 minutes now. If you're watching the recording, then you could pause it and do more, take longer. This is an area that will definitely take more time. So we'll start with that starting now. All right, one more minute. One more minute. And remember that you can pause this if you're watching the recording and continue on. But if we're doing this live, we're going to move on in 1 minute. Okay. Sound is back. What was that formulation phase for you? We're literally halfway through at this point, which is good because the last little bit is, again, if you were at the Resolve workshop, it's going to be a little bit quicker, but there will be some ideas around what you'll be able to do with those last little bits. But the first part is more about, again, reviewing and obviously kind of envisioning. So getting those plans in front of you now and those aspirations, and now it's about actualizing those aspirations. So I'm seeing here we've got, for example, Alicia saying like making lists of how much time, and then so the idea of screenwriting and so on. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Gloria Jean, first trip scheduled. So what do you do leading up to that trip? That's going to be probably like, when do you start the planning process for all the things you're going to need? That's something to consider. You've already got a checklist for them. So proactive in securing clients. So again, putting together a plan for that. That's a step. So that's a step you need to take. And then there's steps within those steps. It's funny how we often find that projects are trying to masquerade as tasks on our lists. It never fails. Again, that's why like exercise is, that's huge, right? Whereas if it's like, go on treadmill for 30 minutes. Okay, that's something I can do. Or work on book. Well, that's a terrible, terrible thing. And you could even see, like, if you look at, again, kind of I flip back to the aspirations here, like more fun with family, like that's huge. Like, what does that look like? Buy zero stuff. That's a project. That's not a task. It's something that needs to be paid attention to. My collaboration project with EK, like those are all, steps. Projects rather, that need to be broken down into multiple steps. So speaking of the steps that I've broken them down to, here we go. So I've already done some of this, so keep that in mind. So on New Year's Eve, I made it so that my exercise time was built as a horizontal theme. And for those of you familiar with time crafting, you know what I'm talking about. So from Sunday to Thursday, from 7:30 p.m. for up to 60 minutes. So I've given myself some flexibility there because initially I'm not going to be able to work out for a full hour, nor do I want to. I don't really enjoy it, to be honest, right? And then there's some sample exercises listed here, like treadmill, yoga. I have a yoga program I could get. Stretching, which is something I'm loath to do, but need to do as I'm getting, older. Lifting, whatever that looks like. And then walking, like going for an evening walk. That's breaking down that exercise into a time that makes that happen. That guarantees or it gives me the best chance of making it. It's a sensible time. My wife goes to yoga pretty much at 7:30 for her 7:30 class regularly. My son is now, he's 13. He's normally doing his own thing at that time. So taking that chunk, it doesn't disrupt my work day, which is very important. Obviously, I want to be able to take the time that, I'm working to be able to do the work. But also, I do have a second half of my day, a later phase as a night owl. And working out at that time of day actually works for my body clock. So now it's just a matter of putting that plan into action, right? And we're going to get to the inspiration phase here in just a minute. Okay? And yeah, Timothy, planning to track time is important, but just don't go overboard with time tracking. There's something to be said for quantitative tracking when you're trying to build a habit for sure. But once that's built, I think we can get caught up in the fiddling, in that sort of area. And then quantity ends up superseding quality. So I'm actually a big fan of tracking things like interruptions or like things that disrupt you, as opposed to, okay, I'm working on this from this to this time. Journaling is a great way to track. Like at the end of the day or at the start of your day, if you want to review and chronicle, that's different. But I'm not a huge fan of the quantified self movement, when it goes to that extreme. So just be mindful of that. Okay. Ellie's been planning the 60th birthday party. Didn't work out. So again, August, my 50th birthday is in July this year. I've been asking people have asked me, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I don't know yet. It's on my list of things that I want to look at, but I also want to talk to my family about it because that goes down the more fun with family. 50 is a milestone. So yes, I'm sure we're going to do something, but what that looks like, I don't know yet. It's something that's going to be conversed about and it's in Todoist already. More things that I've listed here. This is related to the social, like writing, and I put social writing because I like it better than social media. So now I've created a 9 a.m. reminder in an app called TWOSApp, TWOSAPP.com. Maybe I'll put a link to it later. And the reason is I don't want this to get caught up in ClickUp, which is where all the work stuff is, at least not right now. And also, I don't want this to get caught up in Todoist because it's really not personal. This is more professional. So I've listed these 6 things that repeat at 9 a.m. I get a reminder at 9 a.m., which is still when I'm in my low energy. I just finished the Focus Fix session. And this is what I would call low energy content creation. So by posting to any of these, it doesn't mean I post at that time. I still haven't posted to, I think I posted to all of them today. But like LinkedIn right now is being posted to, so I don't need to post anything else to it. But just to create this and build this habit is important to me. And let's look at what some other people have done as well. Working on an evening is way, way better for me too. I've also decided that when it comes to the collaborative project, I need to set a daily horizontal theme. I have not done that yet. Have a weekly check-in with my collaborator, and then have some milestones that we make and deadlines that will act as drivers, because I will work collaboratively with somebody better if there's some deadlines there. And then finally, journaling. This is something I've been able to do, but I've kind of gotten away from it. In October, for example, that's when I got away from it. And I haven't really gotten back into it as much, is as part of my evening examination. So between 11 and 12, when I'm on that Focus Fix session, or when I'm in that evening examination mode, is to just do the journaling at that time. And, it worked out for me last night and the night before. So I'm going to continue to keep that going. All right. So now we're going to move on to the next phase as we make our way through. And we're into the inspire phase of refine. Again, this will only be about 10 minutes. And what I want you to do is seek inspiration to fuel what you want to do. So this is where you could actually take some time and either look into some of the time crafting elements that you've been taught or that you're aware of. Maybe look into, if you're that night owl, look into, hey, what are some of the daily habits or daily rituals that night owls had? That could be something to look at. This is where you're going to start to seek like inspiration. You're going to look elsewhere. I want you to keep this tab open when you do this, though. So create a whole new window. So that way, when I say time's up, you come back to us. But this would be an example where you might want to grab a book and look at something, or you may want to look at your calendar, or you may want to, text somebody and ask for their feedback. This is where you're not only going to be inspiring yourself, and you can do this in the chat as well. I see that Zoe and Gloria Jean, they've been accountability partners. This could be an option as well. You could even have in the chat say, hey, what do you think about me wanting to do this? Or what do you think about ideas a good place to go for my birthday party or what have you, right? This is an example of where you can start to fuel some of your things you've formulated, those aspirations, the things you've envisioned, by getting some outside perspective. Perspective really does matter. So, I mean, I've got a ton of books behind me. I've got my calendar here that's got some stuff laid out already. You could even go, if you're a Time Crafting Trust community member or a premium member, you can go to the community and see that there's some stuff there. Premium members have the monthly challenge right now. That could be a place where you could seek inspiration to start moving towards some of the goals that you want to set for yourself, some of these aspirations. So we're going to take 10 minutes to do this now. This is where you will look elsewhere. Outside of what we're doing right now, you'll see me do the same. I'll probably go back and read a couple of books. I will keep myself on screen for part of it. You'll also probably see maybe some note taking, but this is where we start to look outside of up here and get help from others, because there's no need for us to necessarily reinvent the wheel. We can garner inspiration from other places. Even social media can help with this for those of you that are open to it. So I encourage you to open a new window or go on your mobile device or something. This is a time where you could do that. Just make sure you keep this window open wherever you're watching it, Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn. And then when I say time's up, you come back. All right, so let's get started. Here we go. Okay, 1 minute left to work on this. 1 minute. All right. Edward says, everything is in the plan. External sources, how do we do? I know we took a little bit less than 10 minutes, but definitely want to get a sense of how that external help, gave you some pause, gave you some thought. Yeah, exactly. So major challenge, Randy is saying that I can get really excited about a book or other training once I get buried in the normal day. What book? Right. So I think that giving yourself some time to look externally and get inspired is not a bad thing. It's just, again, you need to create some kind of trigger to pull you out of it. So this is a good example, right? Like if you take a look at what I've done here, you'll see that I immediately took some time on these two areas that were rather ambiguous and decided, okay, well, when is a good time of day for me to work on this kind of stuff, this collaborative project, based not only on my own time zones and my own tendencies, when I hit my productive stride, et cetera, but also without being too late for this person I'm collaborating with. And so I looked at my calendar and thought, well, my son gets home at 3, but really just wants to be playing with his friends, and he's not always home at 3. So between 3 and 4 is good, because 3 and 4 in my time zone is 6 and 7 in the Eastern time zone. Wednesday is the only day I won't do it because that's when I have my audio video day and I really want to focus intently on that. But if I dedicate 4 hours a week to this collaborative project over the course of a month, that's 16 hours at minimum. This month it would be 20. And then when I look at my journaling, again, 11:45 p.m. seems to be the best time because it's the last real thing I'll do before going to bed. Now, where did I get this? Well, The Power of When by Dr. Michael Bruce. He is somebody who talks about circadian rhythms, and he has an ideal schedule in here for what he calls wolves. I didn't follow it to a T. I can't. But the fact of the matter is that by having this external kind of sources, I can pull from it. Now, I mean, again, not all of you have a library like I do, and certainly, you may not even know where to look, like Ellie is saying. I don't know where to look. The reason I did this as part of the Refine workshop is that I want to make sure that you're open to being inspired. Putting on blinders and being very myopic when you are trying to be, in a state of productiveness it's not the best way to be consistently, right? It can lead you to a level of, it can lead you to the ruthless productivity realm, which is not where we want you to be. We don't want you to be ruthless. We don't want you to be reckless. We want you to be reasoned. So the way that you can seek out inspiration is, again, going for a walk could be seeking out inspiration because you're seeing stuff in nature. Looking on social media could be a form of inspiration where you get diverted, right? So if you go in with missions rather than questions, it actually helps you. This is not just for email, which I talk about a lot, but when you're going in with an actual assignment that you've given yourself, a mission, then you can get in and get out. If you have a hard time doing that, then setting an alarm of some sort or a reminder to pull you out is a good idea. All right, we're going to move into the next phase really quickly here. It's another phase the phase called nurture. Now, we only have about 13 minutes left, so we're going to take a bit of time to, we're going to take less time with each of these because, so this is where, and again, we may not even really do an exercise with relation to this, but the idea behind nurture is to kind of cultivate a supportive environment, whether it's, and this kind of goes hand in hand with being inspired. You want to connect with mentors, with peers, resources. We're seeing some of that going on in the chat right now here on YouTube. And resources, we already looked for inspiration at external resources as well. All of this can aid you in your journey. So when you're looking to refine things, it's really important that you look beyond yourself, that you ask for help, for accountability, whether it's through people that are you're in a community with, you're on YouTube, on LinkedIn, your professional network on LinkedIn. If you're on Twitch, there's people that are on Twitch that you can definitely, kind of collaborate and have accountability with. You could also do that inside of a community like Time Crafting Trust, for example. Premium members, they have access to a whole slew of resources, and they have access to other members who are, trying to craft their time like they are and improve their relationship with time. And further to that, you can nurture by connecting with family and friends. Sometimes having those conversations and just bouncing those ideas off will give you perspective that you didn't really think about. It creates awareness, getting outside of your own mind, and I can tell you from experience, when I talk about this stuff, sometimes people look at me like I have two heads. They're like, I don't quite know what you mean by this. And I have to actually reframe and rethink. I had to do that during the entire process of writing the productivity diet, because I had to go back to like beginner's mind or a strange element of people not knowing necessarily what I was talking about. So getting that outside perspective is really important. It can not only inspire you, but it can also nurture you as well. And Zoe, once again, is ahead of the curve on this. And then finally, the last piece is to engage. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, this could be actually doing the thing that we're talking about, which we did in the Resolve workshop as well. The launch phase, the L, was actually doing some of this stuff. But in this case, it can go deeper than that. And I know the term engage can be very polarizing for some people. It's been corrupted and co-opted and such. But if you actively participate in activities that align with your goals, you are going to be engaged, which means that you're going to have a greater chance of taking those things you've envisioned and turning them into something that actually exists. So this is where you want to, yes, having the plan in place is really important, but opening yourself up, being engaged with others, engaged with ideas that you may not have necessarily thought of. And then, but looking at your list, looking at what we've already done, and then absolutely finding ways to connect with things that will engage you along the way. Being in a community, again, can be super helpful with this. And by the way, when it comes to refinement, being engaged isn't always about adding, it's about reducing as well. If you find that you're in an area that is disengaging you or keeping you from being engaged to some of these aspirations, the plans you formulated, it's okay to disengage, to step back. That means it's going to allow you to engage in other things. If you remember right off the top, I said I was trying to do too much. There are certain things that I've had to say not right now to, or no altogether, right? And I've loosened my grip on a lot of things that I was holding on to tightly. I've even let go of some of those things. So in order to truly engage, yes, find the people, find the areas, find the communities that will help you engage with those things that you really want to bring to life. But if you find something isn't serving you, that's part of the refinement process as well. Pulling away from those, letting those things go, And one of the biggest benefits to all of this, when it comes to both building a life of resolve and a life of refinement, a year of refinement, is ultimately reflection. I was watching a movie with my family the other night. Speaking of fun activities, it was called Leave the World Behind. It's that new Netflix movie with Julia Roberts. If you haven't watched it yet, it's rather fascinating. It could be rather harrowing too. But why I bring this up is, you have to, and I'm losing my train of thought here, but the idea of refinement and resolve, like figuring out what is going to work for you and being okay with letting go of the things that aren't, right? Leaving things behind that no longer serve you. Letting them go for now. Putting them, if you've heard the story, the Kookaburra story from David Sedaris, who wrote this piece a long time ago, or Randy Zuckerberg talks about this, like you only have 4 burners. You can't cook 6 things on 4 burners. So refinement is really about kind of refining those things that really matter. And that hopefully through some of the stuff you've done, not just in this workshop, but in the Resolve workshop, you'll be able to have weeks and months where those things that really, truly matter, you'll be able to bring to life. Because at the end of the day, that's really what we want. And doing it bit by bit. Bit by bit. The thing about reflection, the thing about looking back, the thing about taking time every day to be in the moment and take stock is, as Zoe puts, is you look back and you see how far you've come. Our brains tend to be wired to look at the negative, right? It's the thing that shows up first for us. I mean, even when I wrote down my stuff, the first thing I wrote down weren't the things that were great. It were the things that weren't so great. But when you have that daily reflection, that pause, it really puts things in perspective. It cultivates things like awareness, clarity, focus, intentionality, purpose, reason, all the things that we are quite capable of accessing, no matter who we are, where we're from, age, none of that, all those things are accessible to humans. There's no doubt that there's forces that try to keep us from accessing that regularly, some of them internal, some of them external. But if we take a beat, a pause, and spend some time whittling things, reducing, enhancing, that movie, one of the lines in the movie was, there's so much noise in the quiet. I think that's one of the reasons we don't journal, is there's a lot there. It's things why we try to keep ourselves busy. It's why we do productive instead of be productive. It's why we focus on quantity over quality. It's why we're focused on the path to productivity as opposed to the path to productiveness. It's why we try to manage time instead of managing our relationship with time. It's because if we take time to just sit with the quiet, there's a whole lot of noise there and it gets really uncomfortable. But there's a lot in that that's worthwhile, that's time worthy, that will allow you to move forward with those things that you resolved to do. And the refinement steps that we've taken today should make it hopefully a little bit simpler. Well, maybe a little bit easier, not so much simpler, but definitely a little bit easier for you to move those things forward. So that's all I have for this workshop. There was a lot of things to cover. I'm going to do this. My plan is to do this again next year, or this year, I guess, technically. Do another Resolve workshop, maybe make it a little more refined, and do another refined workshop with even more refinements to it. But I hope you got a lot out of this. I hope you've step away and have more of a refined plan, maybe a more realistic plan of what you said you were going to do, the resolve, the resolution that you had, the resolutions that you made, so that you can make sure that you are resolute with those things you really want to bring to life. So with that, I'm going to leave you today, leave you to move on with the rest of your day and the rest of the week, the rest of the month, and the rest of 2024. I'll be around, of course. You know where to find me. I'll be on this channel. I've committed to that. If you're interested in the Night Owl space stuff, the Night Owl newsletter stuff, I put the link in the chat for that as well. If you're on Twitch, watching this on Twitch right now, I'm going to be using Twitch as more of an experimental space where I'll play with apps and do a lot of screen sharing so I can see how I'm using different apps and figuring out how I can use time crafting within them. If you're on LinkedIn, I'm going to be doing a lot more there because, frankly, for me, it's a more pleasant place to hang out. And, of course, here on YouTube because I want to do more video for you and for me, right? It's funny, Rick Rubin in his book, which is a book I'm still reading right now, a book that I actually had in my January journal entry of last year saying, I'm going to really read this book. And I made maybe 1/8 of the progress through it, although listen to a ton of interviews. One thing Rick Rubin says, and I do agree with this, is the audience comes last. Now, what he means by that isn't that, I shouldn't take into account what an audience says. But if you're doing the right thing, then you're attracting the right audience. And that's one of the things I'm really looking at as a successful 2024 for me. Thanks so much to everybody for being here today. Really appreciate it. I will see you in the community if you're a member of Time Crafting Trust. I'll see you on the internet. I'll see you here on YouTube. I'll see you on Twitch, LinkedIn. Thanks so much for being here today. Happy New Year. I'll see you later.